G'day, my name's Bryce Hill. I'm a fourth year pre-service teacher studying at Australian Catholic University. As a component of EDAB 411, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Cultures, Peoples and Education, I'm going to present to you an Indigenous agency that I believe showcases Indigenous cultures and histories for students. I will then identify the role and functions of the agency. Following on from that, I will present two clearly related teaching activities that incorporate and embeds Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives to build on this experience, incorporating appropriate teaching approaches and pedagogy, reflecting Indigenous ways of knowing and learning with links to the Australian curriculum. But first, I would like to acknowledge the original custodians of the land and pay my respects to the elders, both past, present and future, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and the hopes of Indigenous Australia. So, the Indigenous agency that I've chosen, that I believe very effectively showcases Indigenous cultures and histories for students, is Ngutana Lui. So, looking at that picture, you might say, well, what is Ngutana Lui? And I believe I got the pronunciation correct. Sorry. Ngutana Lui is an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural studies centre and is a part of Brisbane Catholic education. But I want to emphasise, everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. Their purpose statement says that they provide opportunities for all students, their teachers and others to increase their awareness, knowledge, understanding and respect of the cultures of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The purpose of the centre is to foster and encourage reconciliation between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. So that's just the written part of that. So, where is it located? Well, as you can see from the map up here, it's located in Inala, about 15 kilometres southwest of Brisbane. Not far from Darra, close to some main roads. It's pretty easy to get to. Bear with me while I change the slides. So the next section you'd have to look at is what is relevance for teachers. Initially, I'd attended Ngutana Lui as a parent helper for a Year 4 visit in 2018. You can see from these pictures, these are some of the kids I was with and some of the activities I did. There's the standard boomerang throwing, but there is also a lot of cultural aspects that are incorporated, including use of ochre, making paints, outdoor activities and that sort of thing. The lasting impression I received was it represented everything that it claims. It provides promotion of reconciliation through the developing of cultural understanding and respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The activities were age appropriate, informative, interactive, professional and appealed to multiple learning styles, engaging students in multiple facets of Indigenous knowledge and culture. Okay. For teachers, the website is quite comprehensive. You'll see that the standard day activities such as song and dance and boomerang throwing, the program also offers elective teachings designed to meet all learning needs and subjects. So you can see, just by looking at it on the form here, you've got different columns, and in the years 3 to 5, the example I've set, it's traditional and modern, but you've got the chemist's shop, which is bush medicine and Aboriginal women, but then you'd go to your second one and you'd want to go, what do I want to look at? Natural resources. And it depends what you're teaching in your curriculum to exactly what you align it with. So there's evolution of didgeridoo, for instance, but this is just the years 3 to 5. There is a curriculum basis for the whole way through. Okay. So from my perspective as a pre-service teacher, I contacted Ngutana Lui and was immediately impressed with the professional rapport that I gained straight away. It was extended to me by Linda, the receptionist, who was friendly, courteous and helpful with my inquiry and facilitated my visit. Upon arrival, though, I met with the head coordinator, Ken Miller. Now, he's a champion. He's so incredibly knowledgeable. His demeanour immediately put me at ease. He clearly had insight into the requirements of the curriculum, and as I explained the parameters of what I was trying to achieve, helped me align and integrate this from an Indigenous perspective. More importantly, and this is more important for me, obviously, he guided me with any concerns that I had, particularly in relation to cultural sensitivities and appropriation. So we essentially sat down and had a yarn, exchanging stories and ideas. This is what it was all about. And that sort of leads me to where I'm going with this. The key to my teaching activities. I'll just move on to them now. My teaching activities are based on story. Everyone has a story. Stories are integral in Indigenous learning. Listening, telling, appreciating stories. As you can see on the screen here, Yunka Porter's 8 ways of Indigenous learning posits this by stating that. And I don't know if you can read down the bottom there. Story takes you up, then down, leaving you in a place that is higher than before. It runs through everything in land, body, mind, spirit, tying together the shape of learning for all peoples. So that was from Tyson Younger Porter in 2009. So just as an example, I'm going to have a look at this and see where it fits into Indigenous learning. If you have a look, we've got story sharing, which is what I'm basing everything on. You also have an apex in the middle, so you've had a meeting of 2 different thought processes. You then come across to it, and you have non-linear, you have a synthesis of ideas. You then have land links, and as your learning grows, you have learning maps. So that's sort of a brief overview as how this can sort of occur, incorporating Yunka Porter's 8 ways of learning. Therefore, the 2 activities I'm doing centre around these stories. If possible, I would invite an Indigenous elder, appropriate community member, or an Indigenous parent to join us with these activities. I'm choosing to align this to the Year 4 curriculum, just because that seemed to line up quite well. Specifically, the first activity utilises the learning area of maths. And I know we actually spoke about this with our tutorial with John McMaster. I'll just flip it across. It's measurement and geometry, using simple scales, legends and directions to interpret information contained in basic maps. I do apologise, I'm reading this off because I can't remember the curriculum stuff off by heart. So the first activity entails the students utilising a combination of Indigenous and self-designed symbols to firstly map what they see, do and feel. Now get this, as they travel to school, as John McMaster discussed with us, as they travel to school. So for differentiation, the symbols represent elements that are significant to them. So as they're driving to school, they're going to go over creeks. It's their story. They might go over creeks and they see kookaburras in the trees over the creeks, or they can imagine the frogs in the creek. They could see push bike riders with the wind blowing through their hair. It's their story. I want them to make symbols for their story. As it is their story, I have been reassured that there is no cultural appropriation concerns. Indigenous symbols are readily available online. Before I go any further, if you want to differentiate too, there is, with these symbols, you can have a look. There are a lot of Indigenous or Aboriginal campsites in Greater Brisbane. There's a great book by Ray Kirchhoff. Professor Ray Kirchhoff, who details all those Aboriginal campsites. So someone who you think is doing a bit advanced in this, you can get Ray's book, Professor Ray's book, and you can look at incorporating, do you pass any of these campsites? That may create a deeper understanding of what's going on around you. So we'll just have a look at that. Some of these symbols here, Indigenous symbols that are up there, these are from Ngutana Lui, I apologise, from Ngutana Lui. These are the symbols that were on there on the day. One of the great ones I thought is, if you look up here, this one, Ken explained to me, was the buses arriving in the morning, the children coming in. Each one of those symbols represents the children sitting down and being spoken to at the beginning. They have the 4 different activities that they go through throughout the day. At the end, they finish with the boomerang throw, see the boomerang, or the dancing. They come together, they say goodbye, and then they leave. So that's thank you to Ken Miller, who explained that all to me. Okay. Moving along to probably what will be my second activity. My second activity was going to be the arts, drama, year 3 and 4. The use voice, body, movement and language to sustain role and relationships and create a dramatic action with a sense of time and place. Expanding on the previous activity, I want the students in small groups to dramatise their trip. Using making and responding and utilising elements they felt were relevant to them, I want them to display this to the whole class. From the frogs to the fish in the creek, they cross over. The facial expressions of the push bike rider. There could be anything. It's their story. You know, it could be the jumping back from a barking dog. It could be any element that they felt. But I want them to have one point of that in their dramatic presentation that they would then want them to put to the class. So, for instance, they're walking down the road, the dog barks, they leap back. They're walking along, they look up and they hear the kookaburra. They can do the sounds with it, kookaburra, you know, in the tree, or the fish swimming. They could do any one of those sort of different elements as they were just going along. So there is quite a repertoire. If you have them in groups of 3, you could have the first part of the trip was, I went down past something that is significant to me. I looked out across the fields and there was cows mooing. For the differentiation from Ray Kirchhoff's books, you could say, I went past and that's where I realised the Indigenous settlement used to be. You can use all different avenues there. It's all their story. And then I want them to make and respond to other groups' performances. So that sort of brings us to the end of my presentation. These 2 activities should solidify a conceptual appreciation of Indigenous perspectives and cultures gained from the Ngutana Lui visit.